Blog Talk Radio.
Something's gone wrong. For all our vigilance and battle scars over the Bill of Rights, we let the flame of freedom's torch grow cold. Because there can be no torch to pass where there's no flame.
Freedom has only one enemy it cannot defeat, and that is negligence. So your presence here, now, today, is an act of reverence. Of all man's works beneath the heavens, none shines brighter than our Constitution. I think Jefferson and Paine, Adams, Madison, Mason, Franklin, I think they're looking down right now at us. I think they understand what we're trying to do, what we strive to do. Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard.
Good evening, everybody. This is Joe Joseph. Tonight, October 24th, 2010. We've got a great interview scheduled tonight. Adrian Salbuchi joins the broadcast. I've got John King and the return of the incredible A.C. Griffith. Griff, can you hear me?
Yes, Joe.
Outstanding, my friend. It was awful that you took some time away. People were really jonesing for your input on things. So it'll be good to have you back in the thick of it.
Thank you.
Folks, let me give you a little bit of background on Mr. Salbuchi. If you guys don't know, he's a researcher, he's an author, he's a speaker, and he's a radio host, which is always good. He's an author of a book such as The World's Mastermind, The Hidden Face of Globalization. He's written many articles out there, and if you're a fan of, say, like Bob Chapman or Gerald Celente or experts of that nature, then this will be the show for you, because he is somebody of that ilk where we're really going to get into the thick of things here and talk about some very important issues. So without further ado, Adrian, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly well. How are you, Joe? Nice to have you to be on your show tonight.
Oh, yes, very good, and it's great to have you here, too. And, John, you're there as well, right?
I'm here, loud and clear.
Oh, man, this is wonderful. So far, folks, no technical difficulties, knock on wood, so we're going to plow right into it. Boy, I'll tell you what, Adrian, it's been kind of chaotic here, especially in the mainstream media and alternative media. There's been a lot of talk about the economy, and the chaos that reigns right now in as far as how the economy's doing. We're talking about devaluing currencies. Now we're seeing in the United States freezes on foreclosures. What's your take of the economic conditions right now, and where do you think we're headed?
Well, Joe, let me first of all just very quickly mention, I'm speaking from Argentina, right? Mm-hmm. From Buenos Aires. That's the capital city of Argentina.
Right.
The books you so graciously referred to, The World's Mastermind, a few minutes ago, mm-hmm. I just wanted to clarify, so far, practically everything I've written, as far as books are concerned, are in the Spanish language. So, in a way, what you just mentioned is that the English translation of that book, that hopefully one day we'll be able to publish it in Spanish. That being said, what I think I can perhaps bring to the table, and it might add some value to our listeners and to your listeners, is basically that from Argentina, we have a different perspective as to what is happening with the global economy and what is happening in a whole host of things. Basically because whilst we do not have, our economy is really quite small in comparison to Europe's or to the United States, mm-hmm. we have physically, and I mean that literally, lived through the type of crises that now hold sway in the better part of the world. Let me explain myself. I'm 58, and in my adult age, I've gone through three collapses, economic and ensuing social collapses, three times in my adult life. In 1975, then and they all get worse as time goes on. In 1989, we had one of the world's worst hyperinflationary processes, 10,000% inflation in just 1 year. And in 2001, 2002, we had an outright banking, financial, and monetary collapse that reduced gross domestic product by 40% and slumped 50% of our population below the poverty line. So in a way, what we can bring to the table, so to speak, is practical knowledge, first-hand knowledge of how this. You see, when that happens to you three times in your adult life, and okay, I'm 58, I'm not young, but I'm not that old, you start to scratch your head and you say, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And in that scratching of your head and the what's going on question, we sort of come to a couple of eurekas. And one of them is that you start realizing how the whole system works and why you have collapses of this sort, and that they basically have the same mechanism, whether it's on a small scale in Argentina or on a vast scale as is happening right now in America.
That is, and you know, Griff, you speak it all the time where you say, you know, your life experience is what kind of draws that picture for you. Isn't that right?
Yes, Adrian, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm honored to be with you tonight. I'm located in Richmond, Virginia. Joe is in North Carolina, and John is in Pennsylvania, to give you an idea of where we are.
I love the internet. That's wonderful.
Yes, it's magic, isn't it? I'm a little bit older than you are. I'm 70 years old, and I think Joe is the baby of the bunch. He's probably a little bit younger than all of us. We've talked about these things quite a bit, and we feel that we're at a point where the only thing that really matters is self and family. We have to look after ourselves. We think the collapse is imminent. It's going to be interesting to hear your comments tonight, and we have a number of questions to ask you from your perspective.
Oh.
Well, let me say this. The first one that I want to talk about is Time came out with an article, and I wanted to bounce this off you because I do know about Argentina and their quote-unquote struggles as far as financially. And there was the article in Time that said, could the central bank or the Federal Reserve be the cause of a civil war? And my answer to that, even though they said, oh no, that's way over the top and everything else, Time took the establishment stance on everything, like they're supposed to do, like good little soldiers. And my thing is absolutely it could, because right now the Fed is talking about instituting a program of inflation in order to devalue the currency, which is a lose for us. I mean, they'll win the currency battle, but we'll lose the common folks, the citizenry, the United States will lose in the end. And when you are dealing with something of hyperinflation, and I would like to get your take on that and what that was like when Argentina went through that. You bring about a whole array of possibilities, with civil unrest, starvation. That's just to name a few. So what's your take on that, and do you foresee that as a possibility?
Well, yeah. The answer, I think, unfortunately, is you bet to the question that Time poses.
Mm-hmm.
Of the three crises that I was mentioning before that affected Argentina, there are two that are the ones that I think can be very illustrative and illustrate what we're trying to come to grips with. In the case of Argentina, our second major crisis that I lived through anyway was in 1989, and that was a full-fledged debasing of the local currency into hyperinflation. As I said a few moments ago, we had a 10,000% inflation in just 1 year, and when you figure, okay, what does that really mean in practical terms? It means that the price structure in a country literally falls apart. So, for example, we had grown used in the practically throughout all the late 70s and the 80s to live with inflation, to controllable inflation. For example, 100, maybe 200% every year, and you figure, oh my God, that's terrible. And I would tell you, yeah, it's bad, but hold on a minute, because first of all, you get used to it, and second of all, it becomes a mechanism, a complex one, albeit, but it is a mechanism whereby salaries grow by 100% every, I don't know, let's say you have 200% inflation. That's about 15% per month. Salaries grow at 15% per month. Prices rise at 15% per month. You know that at the end of the month, your railway ticket and your gallon of gasoline is going to go up by 15%. So since everything goes up more or less on par, you can live with it. It's very, very awkward. It's not nice, but you can sort of cope with it. The problem with hyperinflation, and that probably strikes the difference between regular inflation, let's call it that way, and hyperinflation, is that the price structure falls apart. You have no way of knowing whether a price is correct or not. So, for example, I remember going with my wife to the supermarket, and one day, a gallon of milk would cost twice as much as a gallon of Coke. And on the following day, exactly the opposite. A gallon of Coke would cost
It was
twice
that
as much
volatile, huh?
It was that volatile. This was in 1989 when we still didn't have the barcodes very much in place as a technology in this country. And in the supermarket, they would literally put like a little stick-on tag on all the products with the price. So you went to buy cookies, whatever cookie you can think of, and you just had to pick the one that has a lower price because the supermarket clerks just couldn't put the price up fast enough. So it was just a question of saying, okay, my favorite cookie has 3 different prices. I'll just try and take the one with the lowest price. And when you went to the cashier, she had no way or he had no way of knowing whether that was the correct price or not because they just didn't stick to your mind. If you wanted something and it cost X thousands or X hundred thousands of pesos, for example, you didn't ask, is that expensive or not, because you had no way of knowing. You merely said, I need it, I've got the 200,000 pesos, I'll buy it. And you don't know if you're paying too much for it, too little for it, just the right price, because the whole pricing structure mentally breaks down. Now, that cannot last too long, because in the case of Argentina, the whole pricing chain and the whole costing chain and the whole chain of payments literally broke down, which meant there was not enough stuff in your supermarket, there was no gasoline at the petrol stations, just about all the first the vital necessities of life, so to speak, were missing. And that really created extreme social breakdown, especially it always happens amongst the poorer people who are the ones least prepared to cope with that. And you had rioting, and you had supermarkets being looted, and you had just products just not being available, and it can really be very tough. The president who was responsible for that was a guy by the name of Raúl Alfonsín. He was the first so-called democratically elected president after our military regime that ran from 76 to 1983, and it cost him the presidency because he had to leave office 6 months earlier and give his office up to a new president that had been elected in the meantime. But he had to go 6 months soon, so it can be socially extremely, extremely taxing. But you won't believe what I'm going to say, and I'll sort of close my comment on this. Our third crisis, which was a banking and financial and monetary breakdown that only occurred in 2001 and 2002, just a few years ago, that was even worse.
Wow. And what happened then? What was the fallout from that?
Well, the fallout from that, and it looks a lot like what you see today in Greece, is that Argentina insisted on trying. In other words, the IMF really put Argentina up against the wall. They told the government, you have to have, they called it zero deficit. You have to collect all your taxes. You have to really put your hand way deep into the people's pocket. And what ended up happening is, because of very flawed monetary policies, the government did not issue enough local currency for economic needs. We had something called convertibility, which meant that for every peso issued, there had to be $1 in the central bank, which is really it looks very much, it's very similar to a gold standard. Today, people who would want to go back on a gold standard, which is not a bad transitional measure, so, mind you, they want that every dollar be backed by X number of ounces of gold. Well, we had it the other way around. Since the dollar was a very trustworthy currency. For every peso we had to have dollars. But for various reasons, the dollars did not come in fast enough, and the government would not issue new currency, and it literally demonetized the economy, and the whole system, it just broke down. That was really absolutely horrific. And it is in this latter case, the case involving, I think it might be good to look at it in two steps. This latter crisis that occurred in 2001 and 2002, I believe helps to explain what happened in America